What if I told you the secret to success, relationships, and opportunity isn't your resume, your degree, or your looks? It's how you talk. That's right. In a world driven by communication, mastering the art of conversation can open doors you never knew existed. But most people fumble when it matters the most, whether it's talking to a stranger, giving a speech, or handling awkward silence. In this video, we're diving deep into Larry King's timeless classic, How to Talk to Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere. A book that distills over 40 years of interviews with presidents, celebrities, athletes, and everyday people into practical tips for anyone who wants to become a confident, natural speaker. We'll break down each of the 13 chapters into clear, engaging insights, from how to start a conversation without sounding fake, to the surprising truths behind Larry's best and worst guests, and even how to handle bloopers and stage fright like a pro. Whether you're an introvert trying to open up, a leader looking to inspire, or just someone who wants to stop fearing small talk, this video is your roadmap. Stick around till the end because the final chapters contain powerful lessons on public speaking, storytelling, and charisma that most people overlook. Now, let's unlock the secrets of talking to anyone, anytime, anywhere, just like Larry King did. Chapter 1. We've all got to talk. Larry King opens his book by sharing a simple truth. Talking is a universal skill we all need, yet few people truly master it. Whether you're rich or poor, shy or outgoing, successful or struggling, we all need to communicate to connect, survive, and thrive. In this first chapter, King tells stories from his early life in Brooklyn, where he discovered his love for talking through the radio. As a child, he was fascinated by the voices coming through the speakers. He didn't know it then, but that obsession would define his future. He emphasizes that talking well isn't something you're born with, it's something you can learn. Larry acknowledges that many people fear talking, especially in public or to strangers, but he argues this fear often stems from the wrong belief that we must always sound smart or impress others. In reality, good communication isn't about impressing, it's about connecting. Being real, honest, and present in a conversation is far more powerful than trying to sound clever or intellectual. He introduces the idea that conversation is an art of exchange, not performance. You don't need to dominate the talk or fill the silence with big words. Instead, listening actively, asking questions, and showing genuine interest can make you more magnetic and likable than being a great speaker. Larry also touches on how rapidly communication is changing, from in-person talks to television and now digital spaces. But the core principles of great conversations stay the same: authenticity, clarity, and curiosity. The chapter concludes by encouraging everyone to start seeing talk as a skill that can transform careers, relationships, and self-confidence. He believes that if you can talk, you can succeed in business, in love, and in life. And it's not about perfection. It's about the willingness to show up, open your mouth, and connect. This chapter sets the tone for the rest of the book. It's not a dry how-to manual. It's a collection of hard-earned lessons, personal anecdotes, and timeless principles designed to help anyone, introvert or extrovert, become a better communicator. In King's words, you don't have to be brilliant to talk well. You just have to care enough to be understood. Chapter 2, Talk 101. In Chapter 2, Talk 101, Larry King lays down the fundamental rules of conversation, the basic building blocks that anyone can use to become a more natural and confident speaker. This chapter feels like a beginner's toolkit, packed with practical advice that King learned over decades of interviews and real-world experience. The central idea is simple but powerful. Everyone can talk, but not everyone knows how to hold a good conversation. That's where Talk 101 comes in. Larry starts by debunking the myth that great talkers are always extroverts or fast talkers. In fact, he says, some of the best conversationalists are quiet people who know how to listen and make others feel heard. The first golden rule is to be genuinely interested in others. People love to talk about themselves, and if you ask the right questions with sincere curiosity, you'll never run out of things to say. Another key lesson is don't overthink your words. Many people freeze up because they're too focused on sounding smart or saying the right thing. King insists that being real beats being polished. Speak simply, ask questions, be present. These are the pillars of everyday conversation. He also emphasizes the importance of listening, truly listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Great talkers don't dominate the conversation, they invite others in. King shares how he would prepare for interviews by learning just enough to start a meaningful question and then letting the guest shine. The same rule works in personal conversations too. King breaks down a few basic techniques. Start with open-ended questions like, "What do you think?" or "How did that feel?" Avoid controversial or overly personal topics at first. Use humor carefully to break the ice, but never to hurt. And watch body language, both yours and the other person's. He also notes that confidence comes from doing. The more you talk, the better you get. It's okay to make mistakes, stumble, or have awkward silences. That's all part of learning. This chapter is a gentle but empowering reminder that conversation is not a talent, it's a skill. And just like any skill, it can be practiced and mastered. If you know how to be curious, how to listen, and how to care, you already have everything you need to talk to anyone. Chapter 3, Breaking the Ice. In Chapter 3, Breaking the Ice, Larry King focuses on one of the hardest parts of conversation, starting it. For many people, the fear of the first word stops them from talking at all. King explains that the ability to break the ice isn't reserved for smooth talkers or extroverts. It's a skill that anyone can learn with practice and the right mindset. He begins by emphasizing that people are more open than we assume. Most strangers are just as nervous or unsure as we are, and they usually welcome friendly conversation. The key is to start with something simple, non-threatening, and relevant to the moment. This could be a comment about the setting, the weather, or something you're both experiencing. The goal isn't to impress, but to open the door. King shares examples from his career, including how he started conversations with celebrities, politicians, and even people on the street. His go-to technique was asking a genuine, open-ended question or making an observational comment. He notes that showing curiosity, not cleverness, is what makes a good first impression. He also offers specific tips: smile, make eye contact, and use a relaxed tone. Body language can either invite or block communication, so appearing approachable and confident is essential. Another key point is to avoid controversial or overly personal topics right away. Keep the tone light and positive until the conversation naturally deepens. Larry encourages readers not to fear rejection. If someone doesn't respond, it's rarely personal. People may be distracted, shy, or simply not in the mood to talk. The important thing is to keep trying and not let a few awkward moments stop you from connecting. He also highlights how shared experiences are powerful openers. Being in the same place, facing the same situation, or noticing the same thing gives you a natural topic to start with. Humor, when used gently and appropriately, is another effective tool for breaking the ice. By the end of the chapter, King makes it clear that initiating conversation is less about what you say and more about the willingness to reach out. Breaking the ice is not about being brilliant. It's about being human, open, and unafraid to connect. Chapter 4, Social Talk. In Chapter 4, Social Talk, Larry King explores how to navigate everyday conversations in casual settings such as parties, gatherings, waiting rooms, or even elevators. He emphasizes that small talk, though often dismissed as superficial, is a valuable tool for creating comfort, building relationships, and laying the groundwork for deeper connections. King explains that many people fear social talk because they think it has to be impressive or profound. But in reality, social conversation is meant to be light, friendly, and approachable. Its purpose is not to debate or inform, but to make people feel at ease. In this chapter, he stresses that being genuine, warm, and present is far more important than having a list of clever things to say. He shares practical advice for handling various social situations. For instance, if you're at a party and don't know anyone, start with simple questions like, "How do you know the host?" Or make an observation about the setting. The idea is to start with something safe and relatable, then let the conversation evolve naturally. King also stresses the importance of tone and body language. A friendly smile, eye contact, and an open posture can go a long way in making others feel comfortable. He cautions against coming across as overly intense, negative, or self-centered, as those traits tend to shut down social talk quickly. The chapter also covers how to deal with people who talk too much, dominate the conversation, or make others uncomfortable. King advises using polite redirection, asking questions to include others, or gracefully exiting the conversation if necessary. He highlights the importance of remembering names and small details. It shows attentiveness and builds rapport. Larry often used the trick of repeating someone's name shortly after hearing it to help remember it. Asking about others' interests, work, or family in a respectful tone shows sincerity and keeps conversations engaging. In social situations, humor can be a great tool if used with care. Avoid sarcasm or offensive jokes and instead aim for light, situational humor that adds warmth to the interaction. Ultimately, King argues that good social talk is not about dazzling anyone. It's about showing interest, being kind, and creating a moment of shared comfort. Even the smallest conversation can lead to meaningful relationships if approached with sincerity and openness. Chapter 5. 8 Things the Best Talkers Have in Common. In Chapter 5, Larry King identifies 8 key traits shared by the best conversationalists he has ever encountered, from world leaders to everyday individuals. These traits, he explains, are not natural gifts, but habits that anyone can develop through practice and self-awareness. The first trait is passion. Great talkers speak with genuine enthusiasm. Whether they're discussing politics, sports, or their family, their energy is contagious. King points out that passion makes even simple topics sound engaging because it reveals authenticity and emotional investment. Second, they have a sense of humor. Humor, when used appropriately, lightens the mood and creates a connection. Larry warns against offensive or sarcastic humor and instead promotes using gentle, relatable, or self-deprecating humor to build comfort and trust. The third trait is curiosity. Great talkers ask questions and show sincere interest in others. They listen more than they speak and make others feel valued. King insists that curiosity is the foundation of meaningful dialogue. Fourth, they are good listeners. Larry explains that listening actively, nodding, responding, asking follow-up questions is one of the most underappreciated communication skills. The best talkers never make it all about themselves. Fifth, they know how to tell a story. A compelling story, even about something simple, keeps people engaged. The best talkers use vivid details, natural pacing, and emotional touches to make their stories memorable and relatable. The sixth trait is timing. Great conversationalists know when to speak, when to pause, and when to let others jump in. They read the room and adjust their rhythm to fit the moment. Seventh, they possess confidence without arrogance. They express their thoughts clearly, but without trying to dominate or impress. King emphasizes that true confidence comes from self-acceptance, not from trying to prove superiority. Finally, the best talkers are authentic. They don't pretend to be something they're not. They share their real thoughts, feelings, and even flaws, which makes them more relatable and trustworthy. Larry King concludes that these 8 traits are not just for television hosts or public speakers, they are for everyone. By practicing passion, humor, curiosity, listening, storytelling, timing, confidence, and authenticity, anyone can become a better talker. More importantly, these traits make conversations more human, enjoyable, and impactful. Chapter 6. Trendy Talk and Political Correctness. In Chapter 6, Larry King explores how language constantly evolves and how important it is to stay aware of cultural shifts, especially in terms of political correctness. He explains that while trends in speech come and go, respect, sensitivity, and understanding should always be at the core of how we communicate. King begins by addressing the reality that certain phrases, jokes, or expressions that were once acceptable may no longer be appropriate. Society changes, and with it, so do the rules of respectful conversation. While some may find these changes frustrating or overly cautious, Larry encourages embracing them as part of becoming a thoughtful and effective communicator. He shares examples of outdated terms that have been replaced with more inclusive language and explains that political correctness, at its best, is not about censorship, but about kindness. The goal is not to walk on eggshells, but to avoid offending others through carelessness or ignorance. King admits that even he had to adjust and learn as public expectations evolved over the decades. Rather than resisting these changes, he chose to remain open-minded and adaptable. For him, good communication is about reaching people, and that means being aware of how words can impact others. The chapter also explores the importance of context. What might be acceptable among friends could be inappropriate in a workplace or public setting. Great communicators know how to read the room and adjust their language accordingly. He emphasizes the value of empathy, putting yourself in the listener's shoes to understand how your words might be received. Larry also warns against using political correctness as a shield for dishonesty. Being respectful doesn't mean being fake. It's possible to speak truthfully while still being tactful. The best talkers manage to be both honest and considerate, even on sensitive topics. This chapter serves as a reminder that being a great communicator is not just about fluency or charm, it's about awareness. By staying attuned to language trends and showing respect for all people, you become not just a better speaker, but a more thoughtful human being. In the end, King makes it clear, words have power. Use them wisely and you'll build bridges instead of barriers. Chapter 7. Business Talk. In Chapter 7, Larry King shifts the focus to professional communication, offering guidance on how to talk effectively in business settings. He emphasizes that while the core principles of conversation remain the same, the stakes are often higher in business. Your reputation, credibility, and opportunities often depend on how well you speak and listen. King begins by noting that many people become overly stiff or formal in business conversations, thinking professionalism means sounding robotic or overly technical. He argues the opposite. Authenticity and clarity are just as important in business as in casual talk. People respond to realness, even in corporate settings. He highlights the importance of preparation. Whether you're entering a meeting, making a pitch, or attending a networking event, knowing your subject matter builds confidence. But just as vital is knowing how to listen. King reminds us that business conversations are not one-way performances. They are collaborations. The best communicators ask good questions, show interest, and respond thoughtfully. One of the key elements King discusses is clarity. Business jargon can often cloud meaning. He advises keeping language simple and direct, even when dealing with complex topics. If people can't follow you, they won't trust you. Clear communication builds authority. Larry also discusses small talk in professional settings. While it might seem unimportant, it often lays the foundation for trust. Starting a meeting with a few friendly words or common interests can make the rest of the conversation smoother and more productive. He talks about dealing with difficult conversations, such as giving criticism, handling disagreement, or saying no. In these cases, tone is everything. Speak honestly but with respect. Avoid being confrontational or overly emotional. Always focus on the issue, not the person. Another important point is reading the room. Successful business talk depends on adapting to the mood, hierarchy, and cultural expectations of the setting. King stresses that being observant of facial expressions, energy levels, and cues is crucial. He ends the chapter by reminding readers that in business, your words can shape your image. Whether you're talking to a boss, colleague, client, or customer, your ability to communicate clearly, calmly, and confidently can set you apart. Ultimately, good business talk isn't about impressing others. It's about building relationships, solving problems, and creating trust through communication. Chapter 8. I Gotta Do What? How to Give a Speech. In Chapter 8, Larry King addresses one of the most feared forms of communication, public speaking. He acknowledges that for many people, the idea of giving a speech is terrifying, even more so than talking to strangers or attending social events. But King reassures readers that this fear is natural and can be overcome with the right mindset and preparation. He begins by breaking down the myth that great speeches require polished language or a perfect script. According to King, what audiences really connect with is sincerity, passion, and clarity. If you speak from the heart, people will listen. You don't have to be a genius or a comedian. You just have to be yourself and care about what you're saying. King offers a step-by-step approach to preparing a speech. First, know your subject well. Confidence comes from preparation. Second, know your audience. Tailor your message to their interests, expectations, and level of understanding. Third, organize your thoughts. A speech should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Use stories, examples, and simple language to hold attention. He also encourages practicing, but not memorizing word for word. Over-rehearsing can make you sound robotic. Instead, become familiar with your key points so you can speak naturally and flexibly. If you lose your place, you can keep going without panic. King emphasizes the power of storytelling. People may forget data or quotes, but they remember stories. Sharing a personal anecdote or real-life experience can make your speech more memorable and relatable. He also discusses how to handle stage fright. Instead of trying to eliminate nerves, accept them as normal and even helpful. Nervous energy can sharpen your focus and increase your energy on stage. Larry suggests focusing on your message and your audience instead of yourself, which shifts attention away from your anxiety. Body language and vocal tone are also key. Speak clearly, maintain eye contact, and use gestures naturally. Avoid pacing or rigid posture, and let your physical presence support your words. Finally, King advises not to fear imperfection. Mistakes happen. The audience usually doesn't notice, and even if they do, they're forgiving, especially if you remain calm and genuine. This chapter serves as a motivational and practical guide for anyone who needs to speak in front of a group. Larry King's message is simple. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. Chapter 9, My Best and Worst Guests, and Why. In Chapter 9, Larry King shares candid stories from his long broadcasting career, focusing on what made some guests unforgettable, for better or worse. This chapter offers real-life examples that reinforce the communication principles he has discussed throughout the book. He begins by highlighting the qualities that made his best guests stand out. The most memorable ones were open, honest, and relaxed. They didn't try to perform. They simply shared themselves. They were curious, humorous, and spoke with passion. These guests made the conversation feel natural, almost like a private talk in a public setting. King explains that his best interviews often came from people who weren't necessarily famous or articulate, but who had genuine stories and emotions. They connected with the audience because they weren't trying too hard to impress. They were just being real. He admired guests who could listen as well as speak, allowing for an authentic exchange rather than a monologue. On the other hand, King shares examples of his worst guests, not to criticize, but to illustrate what not to do in a conversation. The most difficult interviews were with people who were closed off, overly guarded, overly rehearsed, or uninterested. Some would give short, one-word answers. Others tried too hard to push an agenda or promote themselves without actually engaging in the conversation. He also talks about how ego, defensiveness, or arrogance can derail a talk, whether it's on TV or in real life. The best talkers show vulnerability and humility. The worst ones try to dominate or hide behind a mask. One particularly interesting insight King offers is that even challenging interviews taught him something about patience, adaptability, and how to gently coax people into opening up. Sometimes asking the right question at the right time was all it took to turn a difficult guest into a great one. This chapter serves as a masterclass in observation. King shows that communication isn't just about words. It's about attitude, energy, and presence. The best conversations come from a willingness to be engaged, honest, and human. Whether you're on television, at work, or with a friend, the same rules apply. Be real, be interested, and let the conversation breathe. Chapter 10, Bloopers and How to Survive Them. In Chapter 10, Larry King takes a lighthearted yet insightful look at the mistakes, awkward moments, and unexpected blunders that inevitably happen in conversation, especially in live settings. He calls them bloopers, and reminds readers that they're not only normal but also manageable, often even memorable in a good way. King shares personal stories of on-air mishaps, forgotten names, technical glitches, awkward silences, or misunderstood questions, to illustrate how even seasoned professionals stumble. The key takeaway is that mistakes don't have to derail a conversation or ruin your credibility. In fact, how you handle a mistake often says more about your communication skills than the mistake itself. His first rule for surviving bloopers is, don't panic. Audiences and conversation partners are usually more forgiving than we imagine. If you stay calm, acknowledge the moment, and keep going, the situation quickly loses its sting. Often it can even bring humor or humanity to the interaction. King also advises against trying to cover up or overly explain a mistake. Doing so can make it worse. Instead, he recommends reacting with honesty and humility. A simple acknowledgement or a self-deprecating joke can disarm tension and win people over. He emphasizes that bloopers happen in all kinds of conversations, from public speaking to casual chats. Forgetting someone's name, stumbling over words, or drawing a blank mid-sentence is normal. What matters is staying relaxed, focused, and willing to laugh at yourself. Larry notes that preparation helps reduce mistakes but can't eliminate them entirely. No matter how ready you are, unexpected things will occur. The real skill lies in your ability to recover gracefully. He also encourages people not to fear imperfection. Being too stiff or overly rehearsed in an attempt to avoid mistakes often leads to unnatural conversations. Audiences prefer authenticity over flawlessness. Ultimately, this chapter teaches that bloopers are not signs of failure. They are opportunities to show poise, adaptability, and character. By handling mistakes with grace and humor, you not only keep the conversation alive, but also make it more relatable and real. In King's experience, the best communicators aren't the ones who never mess up. They're the ones who stay human when they do. Chapter 11. Again, more notes on public speaking. In Chapter 11, Larry King returns to the topic of public speaking, expanding on the ideas he introduced earlier and sharing more advanced tips drawn from his decades of experience. This chapter is less about structure and more about the subtle qualities that make a speaker memorable and impactful. King begins by reinforcing that public speaking is not just about delivering information. It's about creating a connection. Whether you're addressing 5 people or 500, your goal is to make them feel like you're speaking directly to each of them. That sense of intimacy, even in large settings, is what separates a forgettable speech from a powerful one. He discusses the importance of finding your natural speaking style. Trying to mimic someone else's tone, vocabulary, or delivery usually backfires. People respond best when you sound like yourself, comfortable, relaxed, and conversational. Your unique voice, rhythm, and mannerisms are what make your message real. King encourages speakers to think of their talk as a conversation rather than a performance. This mindset reduces anxiety and invites genuine interaction. He warns against over-preparing to the point where you lose spontaneity. Memorizing every word can make you stiff and robotic, while speaking from key points allows flexibility and authenticity. He also explains the importance of reading the audience in real time. Great speakers adjust their tone, pacing, and even content based on the energy in the room. Are people engaged, confused, laughing, bored? Being able to sense these cues and adapt shows emotional intelligence and builds stronger connections. King emphasizes the role of emotion in effective public speaking. Facts and logic matter, but feelings drive engagement. A speaker who speaks with passion, whether they're telling a story, sharing a lesson, or making a call to action, will always have a greater impact than one who simply lists information. He also touches on handling nerves, reminding readers again that even he gets nervous before speaking. The trick is to accept it, breathe through it, and focus on the message, not yourself. Nervousness, when managed, can actually add energy to your delivery. This chapter serves as both encouragement and instruction. King makes it clear that great public speaking doesn't require talent, just honesty, practice, and heart. Whether you're speaking in a meeting, classroom, or auditorium, the real power comes not from perfection, but from being present and real. Chapter 12, Cruel and Unusual Punishment. How? In Chapter 12, Larry King shares his strong opinions about how poorly many public speakers handle communication, calling bad speeches a kind of cruel and unusual punishment for audiences. This chapter is a passionate critique of everything that makes a speech boring, confusing, or unbearable, and a guide for how to avoid those common mistakes. King begins by describing the all-too-familiar experience of sitting through a dull speech, monotone delivery, endless rambling, overuse of jargon, lack of structure, and no emotional engagement. He argues that bad speaking isn't just ineffective, it's disrespectful to the audience's time and attention. He outlines the main causes of bad speeches. One of the biggest is overcomplication. Many speakers try to sound intellectual or impressive by using big words and complex sentences, but end up losing their listeners. King urges speakers to use simple, clear language that anyone can understand. A good message doesn't need to be dressed in fancy words. It needs to be heard and felt. Another major flaw is lack of preparation. Some speakers wing it, while others overprepare and recite memorized lines like robots. King insists that preparation is essential, but the goal is to be familiar with your ideas, not tied to a script. Authenticity always beats perfection. King also criticizes speakers who focus too much on themselves, talking endlessly about their own achievements or opinions without engaging the audience. A great talk, he explains, is not about showcasing yourself. It's about creating value for the listener. You must think about what the audience needs, not just what you want to say. He emphasizes that tone and delivery are as important as content. Speaking in a flat, lifeless voice or never making eye contact instantly disconnects you from your audience. You need to bring energy, vary your tone, and show genuine interest in your own topic. Finally, he stresses the importance of respecting the clock. Going on too long is one of the fastest ways to lose your audience. A good speaker knows when to stop and leaves the audience wanting more, not looking at their watch. This chapter is both a warning and a wake-up call. Larry King makes it clear, if you're going to speak, especially in public, do it with care, respect, and purpose. Don't punish your audience. Engage them. Respect their time, and make your message matter. Chapter 13, Future Talk. In the final chapter, Future Talk, Larry King reflects on the future of communication in an ever-evolving world. He explores how technology, media, and cultural shifts are changing the way people connect, and what that means for the timeless skill of conversation. King begins by acknowledging how dramatically communication has already changed during his lifetime. From radio and television to email, texting, and now social media, the platforms may look different, but the fundamentals of meaningful conversation remain the same: clarity, honesty, curiosity, and listening. He expresses concern that while we're more connected digitally, we may be losing the depth and warmth of real human interaction. People are texting instead of talking, multitasking instead of listening, and spending more time on devices than with each other. King warns that no matter how advanced communication technology becomes, it will never replace the value of a sincere face-to-face conversation. At the same time, he's optimistic. He believes that communication will always be a human need, and those who know how to speak, listen, and connect will thrive, whether it's in a digital space, a boardroom, or a living room. In fact, as more people hide behind screens, those who can talk well in person will stand out even more. King encourages readers to keep practicing the skills covered in the book: asking good questions, telling stories, handling nerves, listening actively, and speaking with authenticity. These skills are timeless and will remain relevant regardless of how the world changes. He ends the chapter and the book on an inspiring note. The ability to talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere is not just a personal advantage. It's a way to build bridges, solve problems, create opportunities, and bring people closer together. Whether you're a professional, a student, a leader, or just someone trying to connect better with others, the path is the same. Speak honestly, listen well, and never stop learning how to communicate. Larry King's final message is simple but powerful. The future will always belong to those who know how to talk. If you found these lessons helpful, imagine what mastering just one of them could do for your life. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Reddit Brief for more powerful book breakdowns every week. Your next big breakthrough might just be one video away.